Good evening. Samuel Goldwyn apparently once told a Hollywood producer, if you want to send a message, use Western Union. Well, Western Union stopped sending messages in 2006. Call it coincidence or call it fate, but that's when Jim Berk joined Participant Media and expanded its slate of films that matter as well as entertain. I've had the pleasure of being a part of 4 of them, as you've just seen. At the same time that Jim got behind such films as The Help, Lincoln, The Unknown Known, The Cove, and other important releases, he also expanded Participant into social action. Their website, takepart.com, now urges 10 million subscribers a month into responsible action. The company works in collaboration with hundreds of NGOs, schools, and government entities to add a social action component to their releases. Jim is showing that conscience can be commercial. Perhaps Jim has principles because he started out as one, the youngest principal ever to serve in LA schools back in 1990. Under his leadership at Alexander Hamilton High School, attendance increased and the curriculum expanded. He went on to create music programs, the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences Foundation, and head the Hard Rock Cafe. Wherever he has worked, he has created charities and goodwill. It is because Jim Berk has served the public, the arts, and the principles of the Bill of Rights that the ACLU of Southern California is proud to present him with this year's Bill of Rights Award.
Thank you, David. I was really impressed listening about me. And most of it was half true. So I have this speech here, which I'm not going to read, which I'm so sorry to the communications group that wrote this. It was really good. But I'm kind of going off script a little bit and made a couple comments beforehand. And I have to tell you that, first of all, everybody, thank you to David for this wonderful introduction. I mean, it's, man is amazing, amazing talent. David has been in 4 films of ours. He's been in The Help, Lincoln, Middle of Nowhere, and the upcoming film that opens in December 31st, A Most Violent Year. So he is an extraordinary actor, and I will tell you also that he is in a film that, let's just say that Jeff Skoll, the founder of the company, and Jonathan King, the head of feature films, and I will be there on opening night crying hysterically, not because the film is so powerful, but just because we had no way to get into this film and we desperately wanted to. And it's called Selma, and David's portrayal of Martin Luther King is extraordinary. It's an important film. It's an important film for this organization, and I urge you to see it. Now, one last thing about David. David has been in 4 participant-related films, which we're thrilled with. He is tied with Matt Damon. And I just wanted to say that there are 12 films we'll be starting production on next year, and happens to be the 3 that David has done production, been involved in, starred in, have done over $500 million at the box office. So, David, any film you want is yours. Just please come back. We're desperate for you. I mean, he's just an amazing, amazing actor, and plus beating Matt Damon at anything would be a thrill. So the thing I wanted to talk about tonight, just a couple observations, and before I jump into that, just a couple things about some of the speakers earlier on. Sorry, Marvin, I have to mention, it was such an honor to meet you tonight. It's the first time I've heard the name. Everybody's heard the name, Marvin Schachter. And I had the chance to meet him for the first time over at the Step and Repeat, when we were taking some pictures beforehand. Now, I'm very proud, this company that Jeff Skoll created 10 years ago, it's pretty impressive. I mean, we've done 60 films, and we have, as I said, 17 actually coming out next year. And we have a television network called Pivot in 47 million homes. And as David mentioned, Take Part, which is this great social site. And we have 7 million people who are in our communities taking action, and hundreds of organizations involved. So I'm looking good. My wife dressed me nicely. I'm feeling great. And I get there and I meet Marvin. And I said to Marvin, he said, we meet, and he says, "Nice to meet you. What do you do?" I tell him, I am fortunate to be the CEO of Jeff Skoll's company. And he says, "That's great." And I said, "What do you do?" And he tells me his relationship to ACLU. I said, "Well, we've been around 10 years. We've done 60 films." And he said, "That's great. I've been at ACLU for 57 years. And so we realized at that point that I was really outgunned. And then Marvin, I said, "Marvin, tell me, how did you get into this organization? How did you start?" Well, Marvin told me, and at first, first 30 seconds, minute into it, it's really pretty extraordinary. I said, "This would really be great for one of our digital pieces. We should do a vignette on Marvin." And then about a minute and a half into it, I said, this could actually be a television show. It's a television special. And Marvin was now into about the third month of 57 years, and I realized this could be a movie. Marvin is a movie. And we got cut off, unfortunately, after just about the first year. It was absolutely fascinating, which at that point was a trilogy, web series, digital 10-part series, and it wouldn't even come close to covering the amazing work that he's done. So I just want to say congratulations to Marvin. Just extraordinary contribution. Also, to Melissa Goodman, who talked about LGBT and some of the amazing progress that's occurred in the past years and challenges ahead. One thing that you said resonated, and you showed a visual up there. There's a film, Loving versus West Virginia. Actually a case, obviously, that all of you know. There is actually a script floating around that we're quite interested in, and it's our hope that that film makes its way to the big screen, because it's an important story that must be told. And I think everybody here would agree. One thing that Cyndi Lauper did, which really kind of connects back to us, and she talked about, her commitment to social justice. But what she didn't mention to you is she wrote the lyrics and composed the music to Kinky Boots. And what's interesting about Kinky Boots is that if you look at the composition of the audience, it isn't one demographic. It isn't one psychographic. It's a rainbow coalition across all types, watching a story that brings different people of different diverse backgrounds together, who come together to save a company, to find, in essence, social justice. So really, it's not just something that she spends her spare time on. It's something that is really part of who she is as a person. So I think she was a wonderful honoree. The other thing I should mention is this has been kind of weird tonight, because somebody came up to me and they looked familiar, and he was the former chair of this organization a year ago. So those of you involved in the organization know who that is. Stephen Rode. So Stephen's son, Evan, was a student of mine at Hamilton High School 22 years ago. So that's kind of a little weird. And the fact is, I had no idea who either one of those were, and I'm so thankful that they told me before I got embarrassed. But it really brings, what's interesting is they started telling stories about what it was like at Hamilton during that time. And that kind of brings me to just the last point I want to make, and that's about storytelling. Jeff Skoll created Participant because he believed in the power of a relevant, well-told story. He believed that if you told that story in a way that was entertaining and high quality, and you integrated social relevance into it, that you could actually ignite a conversation and inspire social change. Now, you can imagine when he went around town 10 years ago and said to all the heads of the studios, "I have this great idea, I want to do socially relevant films." And they all said, "That's wonderful, take your money and go somewhere else." And many even talked about the adage that was told to Jeff, that the fastest way to become a millionaire in the film business is invest $1 billion in the film business. And Jeff was not dissuaded by any of this. He really believed that you have to get public will to coalesce around an issue so that they would create the pressure on the institutions to make change. Those institutions can be corporations, and they can be governments, local, state, and federal, and international. So Participant was launched 10 years ago on Jeff's belief of that, and he started in the back of actually an office borrowed by Peter Schlesinger at Sony Studios, working on a slate of films, which, you know, beginner's luck maybe, maybe not. Good Night and Good Luck, North Country, and Syriana. So the 3 films out the gate for this company were those 3. And we have been, all of us that are here, me in my role, and Diane and Jonathan, the heads of feature and narrative films, and the rest of the executive team that are here, our job is to live the vision that Jeff has as an optimist to actually make the world a better place, to believe that the potential exists to live in a world, a sustainable world, of peace and prosperity and social justice. And that's why what you do is so important to a company like ours. So while this is great that my name's on it, it isn't my name, it's Participant's name. It's the fact that this company exists because of this one man who is willing to put his capital and his life's work and his reputation behind the creation of a company focused on social justice, and not for 2 years or 5 years or to flip it or for 10 years, but for an entire lifetime committed to social change, that we exist. So our commitment to you, to ACLU, who we've done over a dozen campaigns with, going back to The Visitor, working on deportation rights and training lawyers for pro bono representation, over 600 lawyers trained, to the work that we're doing on films upcoming, and one in particular I'm going to mention right now, that we remain committed to you. And I'd like to end with recognizing somebody who I think is near and dear to many people in this room, and is somebody who's very special to us. When we got word that there was a film being made, Diane Wireman, the head of documentaries, came into my office and said, we have a film we've got to do. We have this documentary. It's so important. I said, great. Let's see the treatment, and we're going to put it to Greenlight Committee, and this is wonderful. And she said, well, no, there is no Greenlight Committee. I said, but, well, how do we? She said, we just need the money. Just do the film. You can't see it. And I said, okay, so there's a film that we can't see, and it might be legal, it might be not so legal, but you need to do this, be involved in this film. I said, well, great, can we see some work in progress? I need to tell Jeff what's going on. And she said, no, but I'm flying to Germany, but I might have trouble getting back out. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to go to Jeff and tell Jeff that we have a film that we're going to put money into blindly with no idea what the outcome's going to be. We could be putting ourselves at risk, and you're going to maybe see glimpses of it, but it could create problems for you and the company. She goes, yeah, that's about it. And we went, okay. And she said, oh, and one other thing, you might start to be watched, and your emails might start to be seen, and you know, you could have problems, and so could Jeff. And I went, all right, well, maybe give me like 4 hours, maybe, could you? You know, and as most documentarians are, they have to have everything right now, right there on the spot. And so I spoke with Jeff, and I said, Jeff, this doesn't sound like something that maybe somebody, an executive with a little bit of experience running big companies would do, but we have this film, and I relayed everything to him, all the things. And I said, but it's about, and I told him what the topic was. And Jeff said, do it. I said, but you're at risk. We're at risk as a company. And he said, but this is why we exist. We exist to tell stories that inspire and compel social change. This is a film we must be doing. And with that, we became an investor in Citizen4. And I'm pleased I want to recognize somebody who's here, and that is the director of Citizen4. Please join me in recognizing Laura Petras. Over here. Laura, stand up, please. Thanks, Laura. Everybody, thank you very much on behalf of the 230 participants at Participant, on behalf of Jeff Skoll, who was so wonderful to found and support and believe in this thesis for a company with a double bottom line. And thank you to all of you for the work you do. You know, many organizations, when you do these honorees, they all get up and they say, hey, you should be out of business, and that's our goal in 10 years. Well, the reality is we're in a vibrant democracy, and you shouldn't be out of business. You should always be in business. You should always be the safeguard for liberty, for social justice, for making sure that what we expected as a country is really, really going to happen for every single individual in this country. So with that, thank you on behalf of participants, everybody.